So let's talk about the best anime of the 2000s. First, we'll start with Y2K, the year 2000. Now, this might have been one of the greatest years for anime ever. Throughout the entire history of the medium, there were only a few years that matched the output of this year, and we'll talk about a few of them as this series goes on. We had Fooly Cooly, Inuyasha, Ghost Stories, Yu-Gi-Oh! But I think the winner for this historic year has to be Hajime no Ippo. A lot of you may not agree, but this anime really stands the test of time. This is the quintessential, the ultimate underdog story. Next up, we got 2001. Now, this year didn't quite match the output of 2000 as far as shows, but the movies were not slacking at all. We had Spirited Away, Final Fantasy The Spirits Within, and Cowboy Bebop the movie. Now, this pick may be a little controversial, but I'm gonna have to give this to Beyblade. This is a legendary multimedia franchise that has spanned over 22 years with games, manga, and other anime spin-offs out the wazoo. It all started here. Plus, you can't forget that iconic theme song. Finally, we're on to 2002. Now, this may be one of the most underrated years in anime history. Two shows, Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex and Mobile Suit Gundam Seed, really stood out to me. If you haven't watched these, please go check them out. But honestly though, I think it'd be wrong if I gave this spot to anything else but Naruto. The legacy of Naruto speaks for itself. It's one of the most legendary shonen anime ever. It's one of the most legendary anime ever. It solidified its spot in the big three with just its first few arcs. Need I say more? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about the best anime of the 2000s. Picking back up with 2003, this joint was as trash as any Drake album after Views. You'll never see me recommend one show that came out this year. Look, I didn't say this before, but 2001 was actually trash too. But at least Beyblade started that year. There was some type of legacy to look back on. Look, the best show of 03 was Full Metal Alchemist. Now, this show was so trash, the creator said, hold on, let's run it back. After 6 years. 6. What show gets a reboot after only 6 years? And this was the best show of 2003. Should tell you something. Woohoo! Let's move on to 2004. This is one of my favorite years right here. Like, this was really the year. Back-to-back hit shows was coming on. Elfen Lied, Beck, Monster. If you was watching anime before 2020, you know about this year. But even with all them shows, I'm still gonna have to give it to Bleach. Yes, I'm biased to Shonen Jump. If you don't like it, make your own list. And finally, 2005, another excellent year. If you be looking at them lists with all the underrated anime and all that, a lot of those shows come from this year. The only reason them shows is underrated is because you was still under the covers, scared of your own shadow. Grow up. Eureka 7, Trinity Blood, Black Cat, Basilisk. Take notes, these will be on the test. But this year, I gotta give it to Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. This movie was a vibe. And they was fighting too. And 20 years later, this is still one of the best looking animated movies of all time. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. So, let's move on to 2006. I hate to tip my hand this early, but man, 2006 was the best year of the 2000s. In fact, I'd go as far as to say 2006 is a top 3 year for anime ever. Let's go ahead and run down the top shows released this year just so you can get a taste of what I'm talking about. Black Lagoon, Code Geass, Gintama, Haruhi Suzumiya, and Nana. If you really follow anime, you know these shows are like anime royalty. They're the cream of the crop. They're the top of any list they're on. That's not all either. You got some lesser known, lesser appreciated ones like Air Gear, Ouran Host Club, Hellsing, and D. Greyman. And the crazy part is, I can still keep going. But if we're talking about the best, if we're talking about the show that stands head and shoulders above the rest, then there's no question that it's Death Note. Easily a top 3 anime ever released. It's the best psychological anime. It's an amazing mystery show with a great cast, even down to the most irrelevant side characters. In my opinion too, this is a show that most people can really enjoy, even if they're not anime watchers. It's really, really accessible. Let's move on to 2007. Fun fact, this is the first year I started watching anime. And if you're curious, the first anime I ever watched was Kaze no Stigma. Look, I know I just said 2006 was the best year, but 2007 wasn't slacking at all. We had some pure bangers, more anime royalty like Gurren Lagann, Afro Samurai, Naruto Shippuden, and to a lesser extent Darker Than Black. We had one of my favorite shows, and I feel a show that surpasses something like Evangelion and Bokurano. I'd love to talk more about that one. Leave a comment if you're interested. Overall though, this was a great year, so this pick is going to be a little controversial, but I'll be giving it to Sword of the Stranger. Nostalgia's probably playing a big factor in this one, but Sword of the Stranger is one of my favorite anime movies of all time. on to 2008, and I'm noticing that anime is starting to get out of its awkward phase and evolve into something new. Not necessarily better or worse, but just something different. It's hard to put into words, but I feel like anime was starting to leave behind those vestiges of the 90s and starting to develop new techniques, new patterns that we'd see throughout the 2010s. As far as the shows released though, this year was on the weaker side. I didn't say this earlier, but Blue Dragon was a sleeper hit for me, a really underrated show with designs by Akira Toriyama. Its sequel show came out in 2008 and it wasn't that great. Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds was one of my least favorite Yu-Gi-Oh! Series, at least of the ones I've watched all the way through. But some good things came out of this year as well, wasn't all bad. One of my favorite romance anime ever, Toradora, released this year. We also had some other hits like Black Butler and Michiko and Hachin, but I think we'll be giving this top spot to a certain magical index. This is a really underrated show and a really underrated franchise overall that's still going strong to this day. Great action, great characters. You need to check this out if you haven't heard of it. Lastly, let's finish off with 2009. Look, I'm sorry if this is your favorite year, but this is really one of the weakest years in anime history. I don't even want to go down the list of what was released this year, but let's just do it quickly. We had Redline, a pretty stylish anime movie that is extremely underrated in my opinion. Dragon Ball Z Kai, which is probably the definitive way to watch DBZ, and a show that's very close to my heart, Pandora Hearts. No pun intended. The top spot though will definitely have to go to Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. It's not even close. Obviously, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is one of the best anime ever released. I don't think I need to elaborate too much on that, but I would be happy to do a review if anybody was interested. Let me know if you want to hear it in the comments. So, this is my ranking of the top anime from 2000 to 2009. Thanks for watching the video to its end. Make sure to leave a comment or suggestion for what else you want to see, any recommendations or any in-depth analysis. I'd love to do it. And don't forget, make sure to watch more anime.